That night, I wasn't actually alone, but I wish I had been, because what was with me wasn't human. My name is Arav. I live in a small town in the US, the kind of town so tiny that Google Maps gets tired just trying to find it. I moved here for a new job. New house, new city, new beginnings. Everything seemed perfect, except for that strange silence that crept into my room every night. The house was an old wooden fixer-upper. Whenever the wind blew, the walls seemed to groan. At first, I thought it was just the house settling. But then, one night, everything changed. I was late coming home from the office. It was around 11 p.m. when I pulled into the driveway. A cold wind was howling, and the street was completely deserted. It felt like the whole world had gone to sleep, leaving only me awake. The moment I opened the door, I was met with pitch-black darkness. I flipped the light switch. The bulb flickered for a second, then stayed on. Probably just bad wiring, I muttered to myself. I kicked off my shoes, tossed my bag on the couch, and headed straight for the kitchen. I opened the fridge, grabbed a water bottle, and that's when I felt it. The sensation of someone standing right behind me. I spun around instantly, but there was no one there. Stop overthinking, I told myself, heart racing. I went to my bedroom, grabbed my phone, and called my girlfriend, Saya. Hello? Her voice came through. Hey, just calling to check in. Things feel a little creepy tonight, I said. You're always a scaredy cat, she laughed. I'm right here with you. Her laughter brought me some peace. We talked for a bit, then she said, Go to sleep now. We'll talk tomorrow. Okay, good night. Good night, Arav. I hung up and lay down. The wind was whistling through the floorboards. I had just closed my eyes when suddenly, tap, tap, tap. Someone was knocking softly on my bedroom door. I bolted upright. Who could it be at this hour? I crept toward the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Who's there? I whispered. Silence for a few seconds. Then a low, distorted voice drifted through the wood. Open the door. A chill shot down my spine. The voice sounded human, but not quite. Who is it? I asked again, louder this time. I know you. The fear was paralyzing now. I didn't open it. Leave! Get out of here! I yelled. Silence followed for a few beats. Then I heard the sound of footsteps fading away. I breathed a sigh of relief, but the knot in my stomach wouldn't loosen. I locked the door and sat on the bed, trying to call Sia again. This time, the call wouldn't go through. I had full bars, but the call kept failing. What the hell is going on? I whispered. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. Why didn't you open the door? My hands started shaking. How did they get my number? I didn't reply. Then a second message popped up. Unknown number? I'm not outside anymore. My heart stopped. Slowly, I scanned the room. The closet was shut. The window was locked. Everything looked normal. But then I heard it. The faint, rhythmic sound of breathing coming from under the bed. I froze. I couldn't even move a muscle. It's just my imagination. It's just my imagination, I repeated like a mantra. But the sound was unmistakable. Someone or something was under me. I summoned every ounce of courage I had and slowly leaned over the edge to look. Nothing. There was nothing there. I let out a shaky breath. I'm going crazy, I laughed nervously. I sat back up, and that's when I saw the vanity mirror. In the reflection, someone was standing behind me. The blood drained from my face. I slowly turned my head, but the space behind me was empty. I looked back at the mirror. She was still there, a girl. Long black hair, face partially hidden, and eyes staring directly into mine. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Who? Who are you? I managed to choke out. No answer. She just slowly began to smile. My phone vibrated again. Unknown. Number, now you've seen me. I dropped the phone. I lunged for the door to run, but it slammed shut on its own. Bam! The lights cut out. The room plunged into total darkness. And in that darkness, I felt a cold, icy breath against my ear. Now you aren't alone. Tears streamed down my face. I threw my weight against the door, screaming, but it wouldn't budge. Then, as suddenly as it began, the lights flickered back on. The room was normal again. Empty. I was gasping for air, drenched in sweat. It was a waking nightmare. I tried to convince myself, but then I looked at the wall. There were deep scratch marks in the wood, as if someone had been clawing from the inside. And at the bottom, written in something dark and wet, "I'll be back." My legs gave out. I didn't wait. I bolted out of the house, jumped into my car, and sped toward Sia's place. It was 2 a.m. The roads were a blur. When I reached her apartment, I pounded on the door. She opened it, looking confused and worried. "Arav, what are you doing here at this hour?" I collapsed into her arms. Something is wrong with that house," I sobbed. She brought me inside and gave me some water. I told her everything. The knocking, the texts, the girl in the mirror. She sat in silence for a long time. Then she spoke. "Arav, do you remember how you found that house?" "Yeah, a local agent." "Did he tell you the history?" I shook my head. "No." "Why?" Sia's eyes were filled with dread. "Because a girl used to live there. She vanished without a trace. People say she never actually left." My skin crawled. "And," Shia whispered, "they say she hates people who live alone." I looked at Shia, terrified. "What does that mean?" She looked down at her lap and said softly, "Whoever lives in that house alone is never truly alone." Suddenly, Xia's phone lit up on the coffee table. She looked at the screen and her face went ghostly white. "What is it?" I asked. She turned the phone toward me. "Incoming call, unknown number," and beneath the caller ID, a text notification appeared. "Now she's with you too." I looked up at Sia in horror, and there, standing right behind her, was the girl. The same smile, the same eyes. And this time, she was slowly reaching out to rest her hand on Sia's shoulder. After that night, I finally understood that this wasn't just fear. It was something that had latched onto us, something that wasn't going to let go. The moment I saw that girl standing right behind Sia, something inside me shattered. My voice felt stuck in my throat. I wanted to scream, but the words wouldn't come out. "Shia, don't turn around," I whispered, my voice trembling. "What? What happened?" she asked, her voice laced with panic. She could feel it too, the sudden, suffocating chill in the air. The girl had slowly placed her hand on Sia's shoulder. Her fingers were pale, bone white, like those of a corpse. I forced myself to take a step forward. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice shaking. The girl just stared at me. Then she slowly tilted her head and whispered something into Sia's ear. Shah froze instantly. "Shah!" I shouted. No response. Slowly she turned to look at me, but her eyes, they were different. She didn't look like Saya anymore. "Why did you come back?" The voice was Saya's, but there was an underlying rasp, something ancient and cold. "Saya, snap out of it!" I yelled. She suddenly smirked, that same terrifying grin I had seen in the mirror. "She belongs to me now," she rasped. My heart sank. "No!" I rushed toward her, grabbing her shoulders. "Xia, listen to me!" Without warning, she shoved me with unnatural strength. I flew backward, slamming into the wall. My head throbbed, and for a few seconds the world went blurry. When my vision cleared, Sia was sitting on the floor, weeping. The girl was gone. "Arav!" Shia sobbed. Who, who was that?" I sat down beside her, pulling her close. "Are you okay?" She just kept shaking her head, her body trembling uncontrollably. "She was whispering in my ear," Saya said softly. "What did she say?" "She said, 'Now neither of you will ever be alone again.'" It felt like someone had poured ice water into my veins. We sat there in silence for a long time until I made a choice. "We have to go back to that house." "What?" Sia gasped. "Are you crazy?" "No. If we don't, this thing will never leave us alone. It'll follow us everywhere." Shah went quiet. She knew I was right. The return around 3 a.m., we arrived back at the house. It stood there in eerie silence, as if nothing had happened. I pushed the door open. This time, the lights flickered on by themselves. Every step we took made my heart race faster. "Do you feel that?" I asked. "Yes," Sia whispered, "like we're being watched." We moved toward my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. The room looked normal, but the blood-red writing that had been on the wall was gone. "How?" I stammered. Suddenly, the wardrobe door creaked open. Creak! We both froze. It was pitch black inside, but I could hear a faint rustling. "Who's there?" I summoned every ounce of courage I had. No answer. I slowly leaned in to look. There, sitting on the bottom shelf, was an old, dusty diary. The name on the cover read, Emily. I looked at Saya. Maybe this belongs to her. I opened the first page. They have left me here all alone, and now I feel like I will never be alone again. My hands started shaking. We sat on the floor and began to read. With every page, the story got darker. Emily had lived in this house alone. She wrote about how something watched her every night, followed her every move, and slowly, how that thing began to enter her. "It is changing me," she wrote. "I don't recognize myself anymore." On the very last page, there was only one line. "If someone is reading this, run, because I am no longer here." The diary slipped from my hands. Silence filled the room. Then, slam! The bedroom door bolted shut. We spun around, terrified. This time, she was standing right in front of us, but her face was clear now. Her eyes were voids of black, her skin was torn, and her smile was wider and more horrific than before. "Emily," I managed to breathe out. She stepped toward us. "You read me," she said, her voice a hollow echo. "Now you understand." I gripped Sia's hand. "What do you want?" She leaned in, her face inches from mine. "Just company. I don't want to be alone anymore." Tears welled in her eyes, but they were dark, like blood. "The two of you will stay with me now." Suddenly, Sia let go of my hand. "Arav, run!" she screamed. "No, I'm not leaving you." But it was too late. Emily grabbed Sia. Her fingers sank into Sia's skin. Sia let out a blood-curdling scream of agony. "Let her go!" I screamed. I grabbed a nearby chair and hurled it at Emily, but it passed right through her as if she were made of smoke. I backed away in horror. Emily smiled. "It's too late now." And then Sia's screaming stopped. Her body went limp. Slowly, she lifted her head and looked at me. Her eyes were now solid black. "Now," she said, her voice perfectly synced with Emily's. We are three. The ground felt like it was disappearing beneath me. I backed into the wall, but the door was locked. The windows wouldn't budge. I was finally alone with two things that were no longer human, and they both started walking toward me. It wasn't just a story anymore. It had become the reality of my life, and in that reality, I wasn't alone. Two faces stared back at me, faces that were once my own people, but had now become something else. I scrambled backward, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. Emily and Saya. They were closing in. Their steps were slow, rhythmic. Each one felt like a step closer to my grave. "Stop!" I yelled, thrusting my hand out. They paused for a split second. I I won't go anywhere. Just let her go," I pleaded, my voice cracking under the weight of my terror. Emily tilted her head slightly, her gaze piercing through me as if she were reading my very soul. "You love her," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves scraping on pavement. Without a second thought, I choked out, "Yes." For a fleeting moment, a spark flickered in Saya's eyes, a sign that she might still be in there, buried deep beneath the darkness. "Then—" Emily's lips curled into a haunting smile. "You shall stay with her. Forever." The second the words left her mouth, the temperature plummeted. A biting, unnatural frost swept through the room. My breath hitched, freezing in my lungs. Suddenly, a realization struck me. The diary. I lunged for the diary lying on the floor and threw it open. "You wrote this yourself! This isn't what you wanted!" I screamed. Emily froze. Her features began to shift, the distorted mask of malice softening into something human. She was remembering. "You were lonely, but you weren't evil," I pressed on, my voice echoing in the sudden, heavy silence. Shah stood paralyzed, her body trembling violently. "Don't you remember?" I asked Emily. Pain flashed in Emily's eyes, raw and agonizing. "I was left all alone," she whispered. "But that doesn't mean you have to make everyone else suffer the same fate," I said, my voice steadier now. As the words sank in, Emily began to recede. The monstrous image faded, leaving behind a girl who looked broken, not terrifying. I just wanted someone to be with me," she whimpered, her voice fading into a fragile thread. Suddenly, Sia collapsed to the floor. "Shah!" I rushed to her side. Her skin was ice cold. "Open your eyes, Shah!" I shook her, desperation clawing at my throat. Her eyelids fluttered open. This time, her eyes were clear, normal. "Arav!" she breathed, her voice barely audible. Tears blurred my vision. "I'm here. I've got you." But then Emily's voice sliced through the air again. "If she lives, I'll be alone again." I spun around. Emily was transforming once more, the shadows reclaiming her face. "No!" I roared. I grabbed the diary and pointed to the final page. "You wrote this. If anyone is reading this, run, because I am gone." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You're still here. You haven't lost yourself yet." Emily stopped dead. The air in the room turned still, as if the world had hit pause. This time, when she cried, the tears were clear, not blood. "Am I still me?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Yes, and you can end this, right now." Seconds felt like hours in that silence. Then Emily slowly reached her hand toward Shia. I flinched, expecting the worst, but the deathly chill was gone. She gently touched Saya's forehead. A blinding white light erupted, filling every corner of the room. I shielded my eyes. When I finally opened them, Emily was gone. The room was normal. The door stood wide open. And Sia, she was in my arms, her heart beating steady against mine. I held her tight, buried my face in her shoulder, and whispered, "It's over. It's finally over." But then my phone buzzed. With trembling fingers, I pulled it from my pocket. Unknown number. Thank you, but I'm still here. A cold shiver raced down my spine. I slowly looked down at Sia. She was staring up at me, but this time, her smile. It was the exact same smile I had seen on Emily's face. She leaned in and whispered into my ear, "Now, I'll never be alone again." Now I understood that none of this was over. It had only just begun, and the most terrifying part was that the fear wasn't in the house anymore. It was standing right next to me. I was looking into Saya's eyes. It was the same face, the same girl I loved. But that smile, that didn't belong to Shia. "Sha," I whispered. She just stared at me without even blinking. "Are you okay?" I asked, summoning every bit of courage I had left. After a few seconds of silence, she said in a very faint voice, "I'm fine." But her voice lacked warmth. It was cold, as if someone else was speaking through her. Inside me, fear and love were at war. "Let's get out of here," I said. She nodded slowly. We walked out of the house. Dawn was breaking, and a faint light was beginning to spread, but the darkness inside me was only growing deeper. I put Sia in my car and drove straight to my old friend Neil's place. Neil had lived here for years and knew a lot about the town's history. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see us. "Arav, in this state." "We need help," I said bluntly. Neil let us in without asking questions. "What happened?" he asked. I told him the whole story. He listened intently, then took a deep breath. "I was afraid of this, that you'd go into that house." "What do you mean?" I asked. "That house has been empty for years, because whoever stayed there, something happened to them." My heart started racing again. "Was Emily real?" I asked. Neil nodded. "Yes, but she didn't die alone." I was stunned. "What?" "There was a boy with her, her boyfriend. People say he abandoned her, and that same night, both of them vanished." A chill ran down my spine. "So, the other one?" Neil looked at me. "He was never found." Silence filled the room. I slowly looked toward Sia. She was sitting on the sofa, but her eyes were fixed elsewhere, as if she wasn't even there. "Shah!" I called out. She slowly turned toward me, and this time her eyes were completely vacant. "Can you see him?" she suddenly asked. I shivered. "Who?" "Him," she said, pointing toward the wall. I looked over. There was nothing there. "Shia, there's no one there," I said. She gave a faint smile. "You won't be able to see him." The terror woke up inside me again. Neil was visibly panicked now. "This isn't right," he said. "We need to see an expert." "Who?" I asked. "There's a woman, Mrs. Laura. She knows about these things." We left immediately. An hour later, we stood before an old, weathered house. Neil knocked on the door. After a few seconds, an elderly woman opened it. "You've arrived," she said, before we could even speak. We looked at each other in confusion. "How did you know?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Because she came with you, too." My breath hitched. We went inside. The room had a strange scent, and the walls were covered with old photographs and symbols. Mrs. Laura looked at Saya intensely. Then she spoke softly. "This girl is no longer alone." Dread settled in my chest. "What does that mean?" "There are two souls inside her." "Two?" I asked, panicked. Yes, one is Emily, and the other— Who is the other? I demanded. Mrs. Laura looked me dead in the eye and said, The one who was never found. My hands and feet went cold. His boyfriend, Neil whispered. Yes, Mrs. Laura said, and he is far more dangerous than Emily. Suddenly, Saya began to laugh hysterically. Her laughter echoed in two distinct voices. One was Emily's and the other was a man's. It's too late now. Both voices spoke in unison. The lights in the room began to flicker. I looked at Sia in horror. Her face was shifting. Half of it looked like Emily, and the other half looked like a complete stranger. Now, we will take him with us too, she said, looking at me. Who? My voice trembled. She slowly raised her finger, pointing directly at me. You. My heart stopped, and then the door to the room slammed shut on its own.